welcome to Omei Music Conversations. Today I'm going to talk about a question that many piano parents ask. Why does my child need a separate music theory class? Isn't piano enough? I think the best way to answer that question is with another question. Why do schools teach math separately from science? The answer is simple. Math is the language students need in order to understand science. If every science class had to stop and teach fractions, equations, and graphing, there would be very little time left for science itself. Music works exactly the same way. Music theory is the language musicians use to understand music. The piano lesson is where students apply that language. When a student opens a brand new piece of music, they're not simply looking at notes. They're reading an entire page of information, and they're expected to understand it. The key signature, the time signature, the rhythm, the dynamics, the tempo markings, the articulation, the pedal markings. And then there are all the musical terms that pop up throughout the score. One piece might say crescendo, another might have a tempo, ritardando, dolce, or cantabile. None of those markings are there by accident. They are the composer's instructions that shape how the music should be performed. Of course, a piano teacher can explain every one of those markings during the lesson. In fact, that's exactly what every good teacher does. But if every new piece begins with explaining vocabulary or a specific rhythm concept, then part of the piano lesson becomes a music theory lesson. And from my own teaching experience, simply explaining something once isn't enough. The next piece introduces another concept, another symbol, another musical term. And students need that reinforcement before it becomes part of their musical vocabulary. Before long, a significant portion of the piano lesson is spent teaching music theory, leaving less time for developing the actual piano skills: technique, sound, musical expression, and interpretation. That's why I believe music theory deserves its own classroom. Students learn and reinforce those concepts there, and then use them naturally during their piano lessons. But understanding the definitions is only the first step. The real goal is to become fluent in that language. Because knowing something and using it naturally are two very different things. There is an important difference between knowledge and fluency. Knowing that MF means mezzo forte is knowledge. Looking at a page, immediately recognizing MF, and naturally responding to it without stopping to think, that's fluency. That's exactly what music theory is designed to develop. Another reason I believe music theory should be taught as a separate class is that it develops independent learners. Let's come back to the piano lesson. During the lesson, students receive instruction, guidance, corrections, and feedback. But eventually the lesson ends, the student goes back home, and now they're sitting at the piano alone. At that moment, the teacher isn't there. Can they figure things out on their own? Can they decode the rhythm? Can they recognize patterns? Can they solve problems independently? Those aren't just musical skills. Those are learning skills. One of my goals as a teacher is to help students become independent musicians. After the beginning stage, I actually expect my students to study a new piece before they come to their piano lesson. I don't expect them to play it perfectly. That's not the goal. I expect them to make the first attempt themselves, to read the score, to solve some of the problems, to start building their own understanding. When they come to the lesson, they've already engaged with the music. Now we can refine technique, shape phrases, improve tone, discuss musical interpretation. That's where the teacher's expertise has the greatest impact. At Omei, we intentionally teach music theory as an academic subject. Students complete worksheets, they solve rhythm problems, they identify patterns, they analyze music. They learn to decode music before they perform it. The piano lesson is where that understanding becomes performance. My goal isn't simply to teach students to play today's piece. It's to give them the knowledge and skills to learn tomorrow's piece on their own. Because ultimately, the goal of music theory isn't simply to build knowledge, it's to build independent musicians who know how to learn. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Omei Music Conversations.